5 days after flying into Italy, we looked at our cruise ship from our penthouse Airbnb. As we approached the ship, we got to see how very large the Norwegian Epic really is. I believe there were something like 4,000 people on board. Once on board, we made our way to an upper deck since our room wasn't available yet, and we wanted to see as much as we could of the departure. We met some Liverpool folks who had been on more than 60 cruises, and they gave us lots of good info and advice. They told me about the hydraulic stabilizers that these huge ships use to resist the rocking motion that I assumed would be a part of our experience. Their ideas on how to avoid spending money unnecessarily were much appreciated. For a couple days, it felt a little like the cruise ship was a minefield where I had to avoid unexpected fees being added to our bill. But it wasn't that bad, especially once I got used to sticking to water, tea, and coffee as the safe beverages. Our first day at sea was also my first day being away from shore, being in a place where the sea was all there was, all the way to the horizon no matter which direction you looked. I had imagined looking all around from one spot, but there was no place I could go on the ship that allowed me to look all around. The only place for that was probably this crow's nest between the smokestacks. But I was able to walk from one side of the ship to the other and sense the endless ocean view. I grew up far from the ocean, and all my life being next to it has had a profound effect on me. And twice during our cruise, that sense of awe came over me, leaving me in a state that required lots of tissues to dry my eyes and wipe my nose. This sense of awe cannot be put into words, but I can share some of the thoughts that, for me, usually precede the overwhelming feeling of terror and insignificance and worship and humility and gratitude. When I visit the ocean, I'll wade or swim a little bit if possible. The waves will knock me around a little bit. Not terrifying really, but enough to let me know that the power in the ocean is infinitely bigger than I am. The deeper emotional wave hits me when I just stand and stare out at the horizon. 180-degree view of the distant horizon and no clue as to how far away is the other shore. The awareness of how tiny I am in comparison to this starts to roll over me. The realization that all the strength and cleverness I might have could be snuffed instantly and the ocean wouldn't even notice. The unseen depth and huge underwater creatures swim in my mind and send a shiver from my calves up my back to the hairs on the back of my neck. How can I be alive in the presence of this sea? How many thousands of dead are in this endless water? Then it occurs to me that what's in my view and that has moved me so far is tiny compared to the reality that's beyond what I can see. Geometry tells me that the ocean horizon that I can see is about 3 miles from shore. Here's a spot in San Diego where I once stood on the beach. This yellow line represents about 3 miles. And at this distance, my body is the size of a pixel or two. But when I back up to see this ocean, the 3-mile line is less than a pixel. The facts involved here are interesting, but what I'm pointing to is the wave of awe that often hits me when seeing parts of nature. Some church people I know think that the word worship is about the music in their church. I like music, but I think that worship is that feeling of awe. I like to say, if you can understand it, you can't worship it. Our cruise left port in the afternoon, and the next full day was at sea. To maximize the experience, I wanted to look out the back of the ship as we sailed out of sight of land. Our first meal on board was in a restaurant facing aft, and it was a miracle that with the number of passengers we were competing with, we got the perfect table. While looking out and watching the land sink into the horizon, Mary pointed out that there were dolphins playing in the ship's wake. We got to our room, It was nicely appointed, and there was an unexpected benefit that our balcony was positioned so that we had sky overhead instead of someone else's balcony. We spent quite a bit of time just sitting and enjoying the sights and sounds of the cruise. We had several elegant sit-down dinners and a daily breakfast, almost always getting a table with a great view. The staff was helpful and sometimes a little goofy.
Coffee is coming.
I'm very grateful to have had the experience of living on this ship. The food, the comfort of coming back to a nice room each night, and the experience of being at sea. Right outside our balcony, I got to watch serious seafaring action. And watching the pilot boat on the night when a storm was coming in, I could imagine what a scary job they had. We saw land again as we went between the toe of the boot of Italy and the island of Sicily. The first stop on our cruise was a Greek island of Santorini. The ship is too big to approach the dock there, so we waited our turn and took tender boats to the dock. Most of what you want to see is on top, and the best way to get there is a cable car. We had heard that the line might be very long, and we thought about walking up. But our Liverpool friends warned us that it was quite a climb, it was easy to slip and fall, and you would not be able to avoid the donkey poo and donkey wee that covered the trail from the teams of donkeys that some people ride to the top. Fortunately, the line was not bad, and we rode the cable car. There were plenty of shops and restaurants with a wonderful view. I had made reservations at this one, and it was wonderful. And we finished with a large and beautiful baklava. As we walked around to see the sights, I learned why we had been warned about the donkey trail, the walking trail. The way they build steps is not what we are used to. It seems like a compromise between a ramp and stairs. There are risers, but the top of the step is broad and sloped. It seemed that it would be very easy to slip if there were the slightest moisture on the steps. Cats seemed to be important to the people there. Lots of stuff for sale was decorated with cats. Mary got a nice bag at Santorini, and while our cable car was coming up to take us back downhill, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a long, skinny cat going straight up a stone wall. We made our way back to the ship as the sun set on the second full day of our cruise. And we watched the island light up right before we sailed for Athens.